Welcome to Whole Lot of Wolves, Season 2, Episode 37. We're your hosts. I'm Joshua Buckley.
I'm Paul LePage.
And our producer today in New York is Mr. Alex Patakis. How's it going, Alex?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Pretty good. Well, this podcast certainly seemed like it was going to have one tone after about 70 minutes in Saturday's game. And then it completely changed with a thrilling 2-2 draw thanks to Oh Captain, My Captain coming through in the final seconds. Paul, 2-2 against Chelsea. It was a draw that felt like a win.
It felt like a win given that 2-0 down at the home of the European champions. To come back in the way that they did was fantastic. And it just goes to show that there's still some fight, there's still some team spirit, the way that they celebrated and the way they really dug in, really that last 20 minutes was testament to a good, strong work ethic. So that was really good to see. And just, I don't know, it's like a flick of a switch, but you can pull out a really good number of performances from that last 20 minutes. So I think that stands us in some pretty good stead going forwards.
Yeah, I think that was what I was really proud to see is they were down 2-0 and it was looking bad. And they showed heart. They really showed heart. Honestly, even if that comeback hadn't have been completed and it would have finished 2-1, I still would have felt better about it just because they tried. They didn't just roll over like they had done in a couple other games recently. Like, they turned it on. And, I mean, you can kind of really point a finger at Trincao coming into the game and obviously Chiquinho, who, I mean, he was on the field, he was on the pitch for 25 minutes and he was man of the match. 2 assists. Just tremendous.
I think just having that depth on the bench was useful, and having those types of impact players that can make a genuine difference. I haven't seen a ball whipped in like Chiquinho did for Coady's winner in goodness knows how long. That was phenomenal. Just
one touch, first touch.
Right in the perfect danger area. Keeper can't come for it. Defenders struggle to defend those. That was beautiful. And how much did it cost? Like 3 million plus add-ons. So I think he particularly just offers so much promise. What stood out to me was his versatility. Now, I couldn't really tell what formation it was, but at times it looked like it was a distinct 4-3-3 and he was one of the central 3 midfielders. So if he's got that string to his bow, that he could play forwards, he could play from the middle, he could play right wing back, then we've got a talent on our hands. I'm convinced of that.
Who's been talking about Chiquinho as a right wing back for several weeks now?
Yeah.
Oh, Whole Lot of Wolves podcast. Alex, I know you on Twitter were really excited to see him not only playing some right wing back, but just being so successful at it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and we had mentioned, a number of weeks ago when we were talking about, is he going to be a future wing back, that the few times we've actually seen him put crosses into the box, that they've actually looked very effective. And now finally you see the end result of that. I don't know if we'll see him get a start. And I know that Johnny offered a lot when he came in at right wing back in terms of putting those 2 goals. But even if they were not to change the formation and he were to start at right wing back, like I would love to see that, particularly against City, where they, I think they're going to be really defensive, but you're going to need someone who's going to offer something going forward on the counter, because he looks like the closest thing to Adama on the counter, maybe absolutely, with a little bit of actual end product. Not to, take a low blow. I love Adama, almost as much as you do, but
not possible.
True. Yeah, maybe not. But let's just say, he's a player who's, me loving the Wolves is obviously in part because of him, and some of that, excitement was back with Chiquinho. That was a joy to see.
And Paul, your man crush had a just fabulous goal. This is my thing with Trincao. He has performances like that, and you're just like, this can be a top-notch player. and then he just has total stinkers where you don't even realize he's on the field. Like, what do you think it is? It seems like his two best performances are when he's come off the bench. Is that the role that he needs to have for right now?
Possibly. I think there's an element of, I'm not sure whether it's rising up for a big game, but when he's had good performances, they've been against the likes of Chelsea yesterday or Man United away. He stood out more in that game. I do think it's an element of consistency and really finding where his best position is and having the players around him that can complement his game. Whether that means it's too much of a luxury moving forward to try and place him in that starting 11, I'm not sure. I think they can have some tweaks to it to fit him in, but I think consistently it may be looking at a distinct shift in formation that can fit him in and having him playing in that position where he can do the most damage. I think it was interesting maybe this week that Bruno spoke about the different profiles of player and that Trincao is one who can play between the lines where not many people on the squad in those forward positions can like him. So to me, I'm thinking, well, does that mean that there's a place for him moving forwards, or does it mean that he's potentially expendable if the likes of Gibbs White comes back in? Are they competing for that same position? I'm not really sure where we see Trincao going forwards to get that consistency and maximise his output.
He definitely seemed to be more comfortable not being the widest person out on that side. Having Chiquinho really being wide and dealing with the crosses, it felt like that allowed Trincao to be able to focus on his ball skills kind of near the box and then really take some shots. I mean, he had the spectacular goal. He almost had another one too that maybe he got a little too cute on, but it seems like when he's not having to worry about crossing it into the box and beating his defender, like that's when he's being successful.
He's very one-footed, which has its positives and has its negatives. So when we've seen him more out on the right, I'm not sure that's conducive to his best output. But then if you put him wider out on the left, he's not the profile of forward who's going to beat his man on the outside. He hasn't got the pace. He's not that type of player. So when you start to think about formations, if you had that 4-2-3-1, then that offers a ton of flexibility in terms of giving Trincao that more central berth, a Gibbs White or Gibbs White type player on the right hand side, then a Neto on the left hand side. That's pretty tasty to me. So I'm not sure whether the ship sailed, whether he's not done enough over the course of the season. I wasn't that fully on the Vitinha train to keep him at all costs, but I'm thinking I'm buying a ticket to the keep Trincao at all costs.
I'm stunned. I'm stunned. Definitely the movie took a little twist there when it just seems like all hope is lost. Here comes Trincao with another great performance. And we'll see. I'm going to be very curious to see what the lineup looks like. I feel like if the next game was Norwich, we may see a back four, but I don't see them doing that against Man City just because of the way they're going to play, and I think they are going to line up more defensive. We got to talk about Roman Saiz. Like, he really hasn't been great since he came back from the Africa Cup. And these last few games have just been some of his worst in a Wolves kit. Do you think he even gets the start on Wednesday?
I think injury we're going to see. I think you mentioned yesterday, Alex, that it might be convenient that this has come at the right time, that he comes out based on an injury and they can play that narrative rather than he gets dropped. But I wouldn't be starting him on Wednesday. Even if we are going to play five at the back, I think I'd be bringing Totti in regardless of the opposition that it's Man City. Because it's the case of me that he comes out, we might not see him again based on that. And that's not to say that he's been a great servant. He's been someone we've had all the way through the championship. He could have been out really under the Paul Lambert years, who didn't rate him, never played him, but who was fundamental part of that championship winning season in midfield. And he certainly turned into a capable centre back in the Premier League. But at 31, depending on what salary he wants to command for this contract, I think it's probably the right time that we say our farewells, and not in a disrespectful way, thanks to his service, but everything comes to an end.
Cody's got to be the guy, right, Alex?
Yeah, I think so. It's unfortunate that it feels like right when we were possibly going to see Kilman move over to the left and kind of take over that role that he might eventually have going forward, that he got injured. So Cody's got to be the guy, particularly with City too, just how skilled they are on the ball, and how much they're going to be dominating possession and how much time they're unfortunately likely going to spend in the Wolves' technical area. Like I just wouldn't trust Saiss even if he were healthy, because it's been partly an ability thing, but also a decision-making thing. Like that penalty yesterday against Lukaku, that's just one you don't give up. Like I couldn't understand what he was attempting to do. Like there was only one result that was going to come from that final kick on that. So, yeah, man, he too much of a liability at this point.
Yeah. I'll give credit where credit's due. We've been really bashing the officiating because it's been horrible. I felt like yesterday was a pretty well called game. I didn't have a problem with the penalty, and VAR actually worked out how it's supposed to several times yesterday. That offsides call on the one goal that Chelsea had, that absolutely, there was like 3 guys offside on that last touch on Lukaku's leg. The penalty was a good call. So it was nice to actually watch a game where the officiating was serviceable and the commentating was nice. I thought the commentating was one of the best of the year.
Yeah, you could really tell how, just comparing the 2 weeks side by side, how much more educated Matt Upson was about the 2 sides. Right at the start, where I think he made Reece James and came away with the ball in the proper last third, which was a really tricky play. And Matt Upson really talked it up about his quality on the ball and the skill to do that, where bet your bottom dollar if that was the previous week, you'd have had Gary Birtles going, "Oh, what's he think he's doing? That's taking too much chance. He should just clear the ball. What's he doing trying to display that type of skill?" So thanks, Matt Upson. You gave us a nice respite from that dirge that Gary Birtles spouts every time.
Yeah, and I thought Pian Milstein, she hasn't been my favorite this year, but I really felt yesterday she was on point, really fair for both sides.
Yeah, that's all you want, isn't it? And
right,
we got that yesterday. It wasn't too favourable in terms of going in massively on Chelsea because they're the hometown team and the American influence or anything like that. They're one of the big 4 teams. It was well balanced, and that's all you ask, regardless of who the teams are. Call it fair.
Speaking of Americans, I was loving watching Chelsea's new owner get a big dose of what EPL soccer is with VAR overturning it, where you could tell he had no idea what the offsides was, and just the way Chelsea really gacked it away there at the end. That was funny watching him. I felt like that was some great memes. Like, I'm spending how many billions of dollars for this game that I don't even understand the rules.
Yeah, it did seem like he was. I don't know. I don't really know the guy very, very well, but I just got the distinct impression right from the outset that I don't really like him for whatever reason. So I was quite pleased just to see.
So I do think, even though we got the point against Chelsea, unless they can find a way to upset Man City, I do think that the European dream is probably dead with West Ham's 4-0 win over Norwich City this week. I know we still have a game against Norwich. West Ham still has Man City, and they have Man City and Brighton, right? Yeah, Man City and Brighton. So even with them having a game in hand, they're at 5 points above us. We would really, even if we get 1 point against Man City, we're still 4 points back with 2 to play. I think it's going to be really tough for Wolves to overcome. You never know. Brighton's playing really, really well, so they could upset West Ham. But basically what it's looking like is that Norwich game for sure a must win. And they're going to have to not just get points, they're going to have to get a win now against either Liverpool or Man City. Are either of those results possible? Not just taking points, because I do think they'll take points from one of them, but a flat out win. Alex?
It's possible, and I know you've been like forecasting this for a while. If it's going to come against one of them, I think it would. I think it is likely that it would happen against City. And I think, and this is, I know this is not like the best logic. It's a little bit of a flawed way of thinking, but I think it had Liverpool won yesterday against Tottenham and still been in the driver's seat, I would say that there's a chance that they can be upset. But it almost feels like yesterday that 1-1 draw against Spurs was the letdown that the only letdown that Liverpool is going to have left. Whereas City, I mean, as we record this, they're probably about to just bury Newcastle, I would hope and think. So they could maybe let their guard down. And also based on the first game against each of those two teams, I know the result actually ended up being the same, but I was more impressed with Wolves against City than I was actually against Liverpool. So yeah, I mean, I can see another scenario where the tone feels like it was against Chelsea, where one team is dominating possession and that's City, but City is a little bit vulnerable to that counter. They're reeling after they got eliminated from the Champions League in dramatic fashion, where a couple of their defenders made some really critical mistakes. So they have that mistake in them too. We saw that even from Ruben Diaz, an uncharacteristic error in giving up that decisive penalty. So I'm with you, Josh. I'm on the let's steal one from City and decide the title train.
Well, and let's go ahead. We'll kind of talk about this City game, because we have two games this week. We have on Wednesday at 3:15 Eastern, 2:15 Central, Wolves against Man City, and then at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central, including that 8 a.m. watch party in Chicago on Sunday. It's Wolves versus Norwich City. So we'll start with the Man City one, because I think we do have a lot to break down. What formation are we possibly looking at, Paul, for this Man City game? Because it does seem like the back five is not doing, or at least in the form that we keep throwing out there, not doing what it needs to do. But going against Man City, I'd be very hesitant to do a back four.
Me too. I think fighting 5 versus 5 is too risky at this stage for us. Arguably, we could have gone in at 2-0 up at half-time, genuinely, with that Dendoncker chance that was an absolute sitter. Those were fine margins, and we looked quite competent on the break yesterday, which we haven't really looked like that recently. So was that a case of Neto and Raul probably dovetailing better than we've seen those other combos recently? Possibly. So for me, it's too much a risk for it to change against Man City, even though we're at home. And even those goals that we conceded yesterday, distinctly preventable, both.
Mm-hmm.
Those could have been easily eradicated as well. And obviously, it's fine margins and there's chances either way. And Sarr pulled off some great saves again. So he was up there for man of the match contention as well, that you tend to forget. So I just think they're going to take a look at probably minutes that they're playing when we got these 3 games pretty much in week and a day. They're going to look on Wednesday, see probably what's the best fit, but I can't see him shifting from the 5 at the back.
Speaking of Dendoncker, a few weeks ago, I think I said I was okay not selling him. In fact, I kind of thought that just because sometimes you just need squad players. I changed my mind, man. Dendoncker he just blows so many easy ones. Like, what are we doing? And I don't know. I think based on what Wolves are wanting to run, I don't think he's a good fit. And if they can get 15 to 20 mil, I think they can at least get one replacement, maybe even two if they find some deals like Chiquinho. So sorry, Dendoncker. I gotta say it's probably time. That said, he's probably going to start this week. I still think they'll use that mid 3 as Moutinho, Neves, Dendoncker, assuming everybody's healthy. I really think the only change we're going to see on the starting 11, Alex, is somebody replacing Saiz, like Toti Gomez probably. I could see everything else coming in and then see where the game's at and bringing in Trincao and Chiquinho off the bench if the contest is close or if they're needing to chase some goals.
Yeah, I agree. The only other one that I would think would be up for debate is possibly doing Neto and Fabio and not Neto and Raul. Not that Raul really necessarily did anything too wrong yesterday in the draw against Chelsea, but I also felt like Fabio, while being subbed off at halftime the week prior, hasn't really done anything wrong himself. So that position to me, it still feels like it can go either way, and I wouldn't be disappointed to see Fabio come back into the team. But otherwise, yeah, I think it's going to be much of the same, and Chiquinho will probably have to just be that impact sub because I think it's a little too early on in the wing back experiment to throw him in as a starter against City. But I really do hope we see Neto starting it once again, because that was the other thing that I thought brought life to the Wolves counterattack that we haven't seen in quite a long time.
Neto, his energy can really set the pace for the whole team. And I do feel like with Podence out, that's kind of been what's missing. I mean, Trincao, Fabio, some of those other guys, while they do hustle, especially Fabio, he does hustle. It's hard to really feed off of his energy as well as Neto. You could just feel the energy around Neto and how. I agree with you, Paul. I think him and Raul work really well together. That's probably the best bet up front if you're going to go a top two right now. So, Paul, what are you thinking prediction-wise? I mean, we're looking at it. Is Man City going to come out trying to be super aggressive? Because I know last time they complained that, Wolves weren't trying to play, and we just, took a lot of their pressure and honestly should have gotten points if not for that BS Moutinho penalty call. Paul?
Prediction-wise, I'm going to make it part of a bigger one in terms of where we finish the season, in that I'll probably see us getting a draw on Wednesday against Man City, probably beating Norwich, and then it goes to the last game of the season where we've got to win, and I just think we're going to come up like a point short somehow. I just think it's going to come down to the points that we've given away at silly times, like the Leeds game, or some of those real missed opportunities that we've had, especially in the second half of the season. I think it's going to break down to that, and we're going to end up like either equal on points or a point behind West Ham, where all it would have been would be one extra win, and we'd be in there. So probably a draw. I think a draw on Wednesday. That's what I'm going for with that game.
How many goals?
One each.
One each? Okay.
Yeah.
Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I'm going in the same exact direction. I can't really see Wolves pouring in more goals. I can't believe they got those two against Chelsea. But at the same time, I don't think they're going to be... I also don't know that they were that bad defensively, considering how much Chelsea had possession, and I know Conor Coady mentioned after the game, the goals they gave up were just two individual errors. So I actually feel a little bit better about their defensive organization than I have in the past few weeks. So I think hold City to a goal, 1-1. I'll take it. I mean, I think we would all be happy with that.
Question for you two. If Wolves had lost 2-0 or 2-1 yesterday, would you be calling for draws against Man City?
I think that would have been a head versus heart one where I probably wouldn't have been to say, oh, we've really got to go and win now. But the European ship sailed, so I'm trying to be a little bit more realistic over it. And I'd have probably been the same come Wednesday, regardless of the outcome yesterday.
Well, I've been saying it for weeks. Everybody knows. It's typical Wolves. Oh, we're going to lose to Newcastle and Burnley and Brighton and then get points against the top. That's the way it always works with them. They got the 1 point against Chelsea. I'm still saying 2-1 against Man City. And you know what? I'm going to say Chiquinho is going to come off the bench and get a counter. And that's how Wolves are going to win. Very similar to the way Adama won that game 2-0 a few years ago now. I'm going to say 2-1, but then I can also see them. Well, we'll talk about the Sunday game here in just a little bit. So that's going to be my prediction, 2-1. So we're all homers, apparently. So that's great. That's great. And then we'll have Sunday's game against Norwich City. It's the final home game of the year. Real exciting, too. If you guys are going to Chicago, I'm going to be there for the USA meetup at the Piggery. So it should be a lot of fun. Hopefully, Wolves can respond with a good performance, because I'd hate for all of us to be there. Oh, if Fosun has representatives there and they drop a stink bomb, that's not going to go over well. Paul, do you think, depending on the Man City result, do you think Norwich City might be one where we see some of the kids come in and start?
Possibly. I think it could be a game for the likes of a Kundal or a Chiquinho to start. But I really think if that happens, that probably a change in formation. I think to get Chiquinho in the side, it's got to be more attacking. So either we go back to a 5-2-3 and he's a wider forward, or there's some change we may see for at the back. But possibly based off Wednesday, how we're situated, I wouldn't be totally surprised to see a 4 against Norwich, and just having them go out there and play and see what happens. It seems like what will be crucial on Saturday is that right from the get-go we attack them, because we've got to get the first goal again. Just go out and attack them, get an early goal, and see if the floodgates can open a little.
And look, Norwich they're relegated. They are not in good form. They lost to Man United, but then 3-0 loss to Newcastle, 2-0 to Aston Villa, 4-0 to West Ham. I think the formation is going to largely depend on what the Man City result is. I think if they lose Man City, if Wolves lose to Man City, I think then we'll definitely see a 4. I think if they win, then they're only 2 points behind West Ham with 2 to play. They may be a little afraid to go get too crazy, just because the points are there. So I think Wednesday is going to depend a lot on the formation. But if you're ever going to do it just to see, hey, do we have the right guys for this? This is the time. The last place team, who clearly they're making their summer plans to get out. And it's a home game for Wolves. It's not even like Norwich has something to play for with its home fans. So we'll see about that. So what kind of formation do you think, Alex, for that Norwich game?
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point, and that a lot of it will depend on what happens against City. I also wouldn't be shocked if they kind of keep with the status quo, bar, not with the midfield 3, but go back to that 3-4-3. And the only reason I'd be kind of happy to see that isn't, it gives another opportunity to get some of these guys into the side that I think we're undecided on. Like, I don't know where Wolves stand on Trincao, but as much as we were complaining about how much he started at the beginning of the year, I'd love to see him get another start out on the right wing. Coming on his left foot with, I know Tomato's gone, but maybe Johnny overlapping, and just see what that looks like to, see if we can kind of find that quality consistently. So, I feel like there's a chance that if Neves can start another game, if he starts against City and he and Matinho can keep playing this amount of minutes, then that 3-4-3 I could also see happening against Norwich, but with a little bit more attacking intent, hopefully, than what we've seen through points of this season.
I would like to see, if they decide to go with a back four, a 4-2-3-1. I kind of want to see Chiquinho on the right side and see if Trincao can fit in that 10 role.
Some possibility there for sure, just give him license.
Mm-hmm. And then I'd also like to probably see Kundal and Neves together in the two midfield. So I say if you're going to see what the kids got, Trincao has to start that game. But we're running out of games to see if they're going to take up that option or agree to the swap deal with Adama or what it's going to be. So let's hear a prediction, Paul.
We're going to smash Norwich 4-0.
Woo, 4-0. Happy people in Chicago. Alex?
Hopefully.
I will go 2-0.
Yeah, I think 2-0 is what I'm going to say as well. It's, it's very rare that we actually just smash a team. So I think 2-0. But somebody needs to tell them, hey, all your U.S. fans are getting together, so you guys really got to... Because this is big for Fosun. Like I said, if Wolves get a draw or, heaven forbid, lose this game, they're going to be sneaking out the back door of the piggery. That's before Andrew Smith can find them. Love you, Andrew. So those are predictions for the game. We do have to talk about the elephant in the room, and that's Bruno. We had a lot of discussion about that last week. He left for Portugal, and then all of a sudden, well, he's not going to be on the sidelines because he has COVID. And Alex, you even said, this is convenient. Do you think he's in trouble based on that? But then they were saying, like, his tactics, because he was on the phone, his tactics were what were being used there against Chelsea.
Well, it seemed like it, right? Because there was that moment of confusion where it felt like there was like a bad cell reception, so the game had just stopped for a while, and who's coming on, who's not coming on, and who's actually making that decision. I don't know. To me, I would still be very uncomfortable with getting a positive result without my presence being there necessarily, and people getting used to a different voice. I think just in general, that would have me a little hesitant if I were Bruno Lage. And I don't know if I'm just super cynical and skeptical, but once I heard he had COVID, I just kept thinking of all the times in my life that I was like, COVID is such an easy out for anything I don't want to do these days. Why wouldn't Wolves also use that? No one's going to question them, and no one's making him take a test on the spot.
Yeah.
I'm still a little skeptical. I would assume, is it already official he won't be there for the City match based on timing of quarantine? I know the rules have changed a number of times. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I guess it would probably come down to if he has symptoms. I think that's what it'll come down to. Yeah, I was laughing because Hwang Hee-chan was just standing there on the side. I was getting a lot of Bruno Jordao vibes from a few years ago when he was waiting to make his debut and he was standing on the sideline for like 15 minutes. Paul, yesterday you were mentioning a lot about the Johnny Phillips article that came out. And, he was kind of talking about tactics and, basically had Wolves had a chance, kind of are missing it, and what is going to be the step going forward. Really talking about how significant this transfer portal is going to be. Now, he did kind of just throw in one little thing. He said the spine of the team will change with more than one central defender on his way in, and the strengthening of the midfield and forward positions also set to happen. Paul, you seem to take from that the central defender is a done deal, whoever that is.
I did do. It seemed like that he wouldn't have put that in writing if he hasn't got some concrete backing that it's happening.
Yeah, I'll be curious. I think I want to see like Wolves announce something in Chicago. So, Alex, do you think that there's one signing already done, like it kind of insinuates in that article?
I would hope so. And I think after a pretty mild January transfer window where there were some expectations, there's reason to believe that there's already funds in place that are ready to be spent that aren't dependent on, Neves or anybody else being sold. And when you see some of the turnover that I think is going to happen at the club with players who've been around forever, contract expiring. Yeah, and I think that's a great place to start, is in that central defender. If they're committed to Bruno and they're committed to moving towards a system that he wants to play, then I think that's got to be the first order of business. So wouldn't that be something to wake up on Saturday morning in Chicago, a little hungover from hanging out with everybody on Friday night, get a signing announced on Twitter, see the lineup come out with maybe more attacking intent, and all of a sudden all that pessimism fades away, right?
I would like to see a "Here you go" or "Here we go" on Twitter. That would be nice.
Oh, yeah.
Still holding out hope that we're there in the piggery, and then Weston McKennie comes out to sign his contract right there. I think little pipe dream, but that would be awesome. Hopefully they do announce what the tour will be for the U.S. There on Sunday. Okay, Paul. What no stupid questions do we have this week?
We've got some carryovers this week, listeners. So remember, no stupid questions is the point of the show where we will answer whatever you want to know when it comes to the Wolves, be it history or experiences in Wolverhampton, anything that you want to know. Get in touch either on social media, Twitter, Facebook, or you can email hello@wholelotofwolves.com. So a couple from the past week. First up is Steve Young on Twitter, and he asks if American sports had a relegation/pyramid system, which one of your favourite franchises do you think would inevitably be in a constant scrap to stay in the first tier? And Steve said, for me, it would be the Phillies.
That's a great question. That is a really good question. Relegation. So I am, a lot of people know, a huge Chicago Cubs fan. I think in the past that would have been a big issue. I do feel like ownership's, good enough now that wouldn't be. I'm also a Bears fan. As a Chicago Bears fan, I would be extremely worried about relegation. Extremely. It would definitely change it because, for American sports, when it's getting late in the season and your team's dog poo, like you're kind of hoping they keep losing to get a higher draft pick. If relegation was involved, you'd be like, whoa. Man, that's a great question. Alex?
I have the unfortunate, I guess, family lineage of being Knicks fans.
You're screwed.
And the Knicks are definitely a team that would have followed like the Sunderland route of being this big team, getting relegated, and then it continuing to get worse. But I think the only benefit of that is it probably would have forced ownership to change, which I think is the biggest thing for the Knicks. So I think the Knicks would have gotten relegated, possibly even liquidated, and they might not even exist anymore if we had a real relegation system in the NBA.
Paul, would your crab soccer team be risk of relegation?
I think certain players on there would be, for definite. Me, most definitely.
So what of your pro teams?
I think obviously it's cyclical, isn't it? But you definitely point to the Texans these past few seasons, definitely being a relegation contender to drop down from the NFL, probably would have gone last year potentially. If it was the bottom three, if you look at it in draft picks, they would have gone. But then even back to 10 years ago in the Astros rebuilding, they were terrible. Yeah. Just on even when Altuve first came in, that was a good 2 or 3 years to right that ship as well. So yeah, they would have been definitely flirting with it all, and even the Rockets these past 2 seasons as well. They'd be potential relegation candidates for sure.
I think you would definitely see interesting trading in these leagues. Obviously, it would never happen in U.S. sports because I feel like there's just too much money and not enough teams. And that would, I think the Knicks could maybe survive being relegated, but like the Houston Texans or something, I don't know if they could survive being relegated. Everybody would stop coming and then it would just be a downward spiral. So, but that's what makes soccer so cool. I think MLS should adopt it. Again, that would destroy a franchise probably in the U.S., but it would be interesting at least. Great question, Steve.
Next one is Brian Donnelly, also on Twitter, and I'm going to hand this over to the movie experts because he asks if they made a British remake of Mighty Ducks starring the Wolves, who is Charlie Conway, Les Averman and Jesse Hall? And I'm definitely passing this on because I've never even seen the Mighty Ducks. So
it has been so long since I saw that movie. So I'm gonna let Alex start it off here.
Yeah, it's I would say it's it's been a long time for me as well. So we're just casting Wolves players into those roles, right? That's
yes,
what we're doing.
I mean, Nuno would have to be Gordon Bombay, right? Yeah. I don't think that would be his role. I would definitely think it would have to be Nuno from pulling him out. I'm going to say Charlie would be Conor Coady. You know what? Let me watch Mighty Ducks this week, and then we'll come back to that question.
That sounds good. And that brings this week's show to an end. So again, thanks to Alex producing in New York. We have got Ron Firth in Canada who helps us with our social media. We will be back again next week to see where we are after these 2 games and then going into that last game of the season away at Liverpool. So if you're traveling to Chicago, be safe, have fun, and up the mighty Wolves.